Good afternoon and welcome to the International Association of Emergency Managers Conference. This is our next Tech Talk, and I am going to talk about a few simple ways to make the content that you use either in an email or online a little bit more accessible. So first, let me give you a little bit of background. My name is Jennifer Lazo. I work in the city of Berkeley, and I have the pleasure of working with a lot of different organizations in the city, including people with disabilities. And so when working with those organizations, they do a very good job of making sure that I get the messages to them in an accessible format. Because if I don't, I'll have a phone call within an hour saying, hey, I can't read that email. I can't read that poster. I have no idea when that meeting is. So a lot of these are little tricks and tips I've learned over time. Hopefully some of them will be useful to you. A lot of it is actually using technology that has always been on your computer. You will not need to do anything new here, but you maybe didn't know why or how to use it. So I'm going to start off, first of all, by talking about our audience. So go ahead and click. Let's do it. Yeah. So we've talked a lot about whole community partners here at this conference. It's a major focus of FEMA, of everything that we do in emergency management. But we can't actually be whole community partners if we do not talk to our whole community partners in ways they can read. It's just a simple fact and a simple challenge that we have. Therefore, we need to make sure that screen readers are going to work, that people who can't read small print easily are going to be able to access our content. So that means including them in the information. So next slide. Thank you. So anybody like XKCD, the comic? Anyone ever read this comic? A few people, I would imagine. It's a pretty good tech comic. I actually had to go through the best of XKCD and go through about 15 before I got to one that was techy, but not too techy. So I'll actually read it aloud for those of you on Periscope. My apologies for reading a comic, which is probably a faux pas. This is the CIA comic, which starts with a TV announcer saying, hackers briefly took down the website of the CIA yesterday. And then it has a box that says, what people here? Someone hacked into the computers of the CIA. What computer experts here? Someone tore down a poster hung up by the CIA. Right? So the whole joke about how people actually see hacking is very different based on your audience. But anybody see something different missing in this XKCD comic? What's the best part of these comics, guys? What is it? It's the scroll over. If you've ever seen these comics, the best part is the fact that a little text box comes up and you have another panel of the comic. This is when you put your mouse over it, you get a little additional joke. And this one that says, it was their main recruiting poster, hung on a nearly 10-foot up high wall. It means the hackers have a ladder technology. Are we headed to a future where everyone has to pay $50 for one of those locked plexiglass poster covers? More after the break. So this rollover, that idea of getting a little piece of text on top of an image, actually is an accessibility feature on your computer that's built in. Here's why. Usually if you use a screen reader and you came upon this image, unless someone's done some good coding in the background, all that will show up is the word image, which is very, very frustrating for people who use screen readers. Instead, because they have a scroll over, all that's going to show up actually is this last joke, which is probably pretty confusing, but this is the idea of what a scroll over is, or alt text is. So let's talk about images a little bit here. Next slide. Images are something that we really can use a lot, very effectively in emergency management, but if we don't think about how they'll show up to someone with a screen reader, we're going to lose half our audience. So a good example is a map. This is actually the Berkeley tsunami inundation map. Very exciting. One of the things is I would be inclined, if it was an emergency, I was short on time, to just post the map and say, if you live in the part that's green, evacuate. That's going to get most people nowhere if they aren't able to actually see that image. And even people who live in the area, they may not be sure exactly where that line is. Is it my side of the street? Is it the other side of the street? It's actually, when you make things more accessible for people with disabilities, you tend to make them more accessible for everyone in your community. So here's an example of how you can do this. Either you can use alt text, which adds an extra layer to the text for someone with a screen reader, or even better, just add a caption underneath that says, the Berkeley Tsunami Warning Zone is from 2nd Street on the east to the bay on the west. All of the Berkeley Marina is included in the danger area. Now you're not only showing a map, you're using a verbal description, and people can actually understand that description in their own context. Try to place themselves in a warning area. So that's a simple way to make things more accessible. Another thing is that social media platforms are starting to add alt text capability, and it's not only a tool to add accessibility, it's a tool to make your Google search results better. So this is one of the great secrets of alt text, is when you add things in alt text, it actually also adds those keywords to your Google search results and may make some of your posts pop up higher because you've got more keywords. Finally, there's a PDF trick that I'll be able to demonstrate here, but that some people may be aware of, which is in PDF, there is actually an option in basic players to say, read this page for me. It will actually have a computer read out what it can find. And what you'll suddenly discover is some of them may read nothing. You hit on the PDF and nothing is read. Some you'll be able to hear some of the boxes, but not others. But it's a good idea. It gives you a good idea of how someone will be able to navigate through your forms and whether or not they'll be able to do it, and you don't need any fancy screen reader technology to test your forms. So most PDFs, though, generally will not work. So if you're going to use a PDF document, go ahead and make the poster. It can be beautiful. But also make sure that you have a text-only version so that people who can't see that PDF are able to read the text. Next slide. Next, has anyone ever seen this box on their word processor before? This is the styles box. Most people never touch it because it's just not something that you instinctively use. But it's actually, not only is it a tool to make your different documents consistent so they look the same from one to another, it's also a tool to help with accessibility. So styles have things like normal, heading, title, subtitle. When you use styles in a Word document, as someone moves through the document, it'll actually say what that under thing is. So it'll say, read title, and then it will have the title of your document. Subtitle. It helps someone figure out where they are in a document and skip between sections. So can we go to the next slide, Mary Jo? This is a demo of what these styles actually look like in a document. I just wrote the same name up here. You can do whatever text you want within the style. But you can have title, subtitle, headings, and maybe someone knows, I need to jump to heading 2. They can actually jump to that and find it in the document without having to click through the entire document, which can take a long time. Another tip, by the way, you may like using Enter 15 times to get to the next page for your formatting. That will drive someone on a screen reader insane because they will just think your document ended. They won't be able to find when the text comes up again, and they might give up and just stop there. If you do a page break instead, it'll instantly go to the next page. You'll know exactly where it starts up again. So this is an example of a document I've made that uses styles. It still looks pretty, it still looks fine, but someone can go, all right, the title is this is the agenda for this meeting. The subtitle is the date and location of the meeting, and then we've got bullet points. It's simple, it's accessible, and it's much easier for my colleagues with screen readers to actually get through. And then one last thing. This is one of my favorite really simple graphics from FEMA, and I will describe it out loud as well. It's one person raising their hand saying, just ask. And it says, ASL interpreter, materials in large print, materials in Braille, assistive listening device, TTY, someone to explain. And the big idea is people may need one, none, or all of these, and they can all be useful in increasing accessibility. So they may still need to have a TTY device. I actually took a picture, but I didn't get time to put it on the slide, of the TTY device on my desk. I am one of 2 people in the city who has a TTY device on their desk. I haven't necessarily needed to use it yet, but let me tell you why I have it. We have an emergency notification system. It's great. And you can go onto a website and sign up for our emergency notification system. But if you are not necessarily comfortable with doing that, you can call us and we'll sign you up. But if there's somebody who isn't comfortable with using the internet and so therefore may not like a lot of technology and you want help, but you usually use a TTY, you're not going to be able to communicate with me well if all I do is answer the phone and answer my email. So that's why I still use older devices, to make sure that we're including everyone. So this is really the key. We actually have these signs now at our shelters. Just posting it up when somebody walks in. Just ask. Make sure that you know that you can ask and that help will be given. And it also helps me remember that sometimes I'm going to mess it up. I definitely mess it up quite a bit on accessibility issues, and I make sure that people feel they can come to me and ask and say, hey, I can't read this. This isn't working out for me. So I encourage everybody, next slide, to look at how you can increase accessibility in the things that you do day to day. It can be as simple as using styles in a Word document when you send out an agenda. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. And with that, I will say thank you, and that our next speech is actually going to be at the afternoon break, which is at 3:45 Eastern Time, and we will have another wonderful speaker, so we hope that you'll join us then.